Welcome to the Late Night Gamecock Show from Chief Sports South Carolina. Here are your hosts, Matt Anderson and Alex Jones of theBigSpur.com.
Well, welcome into the Late Night Gamecock Show. This is coming off the heels of an amazing game by Old Dominion, maybe less of an amazing game by South Carolina. So, Alex, this was also Labor Day weekend. How was your Labor Day weekend, Alex?
It was great. Hope everybody who's listening was great. Yours as well. But I think that was a great way to describe that game right there.
Yeah, my Labor Day weekend was fantastic. We went to the football game. It lasted until the weather delay, but it was fun because you got to take my son to the game, 18 months old, got some great pictures. And then the weather delay happened and he was sick of it. And all the people started moving. So I had to go home and watch the rest of the game. But I've watched it 2 times since on TV. But at the end of the day, Alex, what's your take on the fan base right now? Because if you're a member of the Big Spur, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I think everybody's just kind of uneasy about the offensive performance. Obviously, I think everybody feels pretty good about what the defense showed, and I think there are high expectations for the defense, and I think for the most part they lived up to those. I just think a lot of the questions right now surround what's this offense going to look like moving forward.
Yeah, for me, I kind of think about it, and when I look on message boards and I look on social media, and I try not to because it's tough, but part of the job is doing that. I feel like so many Gamecock fans would have rather had a loss on Saturday than a win. And for me, I look back to when Missouri won last year over a team similar to Old Dominion, 23-19. And yeah, what are you going to say? Like Missouri had a great season. So everything that happens in week 1 changes in week 2, unless your name is Florida State, I think.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk all about that. We're going to talk about the Kentucky game coming up. We're going to rehash what happened in this particular game. But Alex, right now, like what I think about is what do you think went right for South Carolina on Saturday?
Yeah, obviously, I thought the defense, for the most part, shined. You had, the two busts, I guess, on the two plays that led to touchdowns. Obviously, that's got to get cleaned up a little bit, but for the most part, those guys played really, really well. I mean, you think about the speed at linebacker that we've heard all about that, and I think that showed. And your two edges, I mean, really the whole defensive line, but those two edges were the ones that shined. Were co-SEC Defensive Lineman of the Week, which is pretty awesome for South Carolina to have. And Kennard and Dylan Stewart show they got a chance to do big things this year. And Dylan Stewart, for being a true freshman, like that was pretty special what he did, especially causing pretty much the game-winning fumble that led to the touchdown. So overall defense, I thought it was a pretty good performance by those guys. And offensively, I think with Lenora Sellers, I think it was just first game jitters a little bit. And he kind of mentioned that today, which is a little timid, but just working just to get comfortable. I think that's going to be something to watch here against Kentucky is how can they find ways to get him comfortable early on.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the game live. I watched the game 2 more times after that. Well, kind of live, but watched it live on TV once I got back to the house. I think outside of those 2 busted plays, the Gamecock defense would have given up maybe 200 yards, give or take. And they forced 4 turnovers, which is awesome. And they had the opportunity for 2 more turnovers when they couldn't recover fumbles that they caused. So, I mean, I don't know how you can say the defense could have played better. Like there's going to be a busted play or 2 in every single game of the season. Do you want those 2 plays to go for a combined 108 yards? I don't think so. I mean, 108 yards on 2 plays usually results in a touchdown. But I thought the defense looked pretty good. What's your take on the kicking game? Because like when I think about things that went right, outside of the blocked punt and outside of the missed 48-yard field goal attempt by Alex Herrera, I thought it looked pretty decent. Maybe Kai Kroger could do a better job of pinning people inside the 5, but that's really hard to do. But getting the blocked punt kind of hurt.
Yeah, and I think starting with Herrera, I think that was, a lot of, some concern around that heading into the game just because, Shane Beamer had mentioned that inconsistent first week that they had in preseason camp. But Joe DeCamillis mentioned that, leading up to that game, Alex Herrera had great 2 weeks. And I think that showed he kind of built on that. He had 2 40-plus long field goals. And, I mean, honestly, they don't win that game without Alex Herrera making those field goals. And he did have that one missed one. But, I thought for the most – I mean, a pretty solid showing for him to go 3 for 4 in his first game. And kickoff-wise, he was fine. And I thought the kickoff team was actually pretty good throughout the game. With Kai, it was just a little bit – I think the stats probably hurt a little bit with that block punt. And, I thought he was okay for the most part in that one. But, they got to get that block punt cleanup because that guy just came unblocked all the way through the middle. But, I thought for the most part it was a solid showing by the special teams.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of say that everything went right for the most part on special teams. Like anytime there's a block punt, like you can't say everything was A+ or perfect or anything like that. Yeah. But I mean, Alex Herrera showed me something I didn't know he had. I mean, to make the kicks that he made and made all of his extra points, it looked good. Like kicking the ball out of the end zone most of the time when he had the opportunity on kickoffs was good. I think the front 7. Go ahead, Alex.
I was going to say, in the fake field goal, should have been a touchdown, and you can't really have that penalty where you have an illegal man downfield. So I guess that is not a good thing that the special teams did, but I think that's just a first game thing.
Well, I think that on to your point, Alex, it definitely showed the Gamecocks are willing to do that when they get whatever look they want. I think Shane said if we get that look from, was it the right hash or the left hash?
Left hash.
Yeah, when they get that look from the left hash, they're gonna go for it. And look, I'm a basketball guy, and Alex, you know that. All these listeners know this, but coming out of a timeout or coming out of a play on the sideline or like underneath the basketball goal, that's kind of like special teams in basketball. Like, let's steal a point here. And whether it's a 3-pointer, it's a layup, or it's a lob dunk, like you can steal points there. And that's what Shane Beamer and this staff tries to do on special teams. When they have the opportunity, they try and steal points. And I have no problem with that at all. I encourage it. And the fact that, most teams don't think about scoring in 3 phases of the game, mostly just on offense, but you have defense and you have special teams, and as many points as you get on the board, go ahead and do it. Other things that I thought went right, I thought the front 7 on the defense was fantastic. And you kind of touched on that earlier, but I mean, to have Kyle Kennard and Dylan Stewart as co-offensive or defensive linemen of the week in the SEC. I mean, JB said on the show today, I don't know if that's ever happened for any school, let alone South Carolina. So I think the front 7 look good. What's your take on that, Alex?
Yeah, and I think with those guys, especially those edges playing the way they did, it's only going to help those interior defensive linemen. And the interior guys played really well too. TJ Sanders and Tonka Henway and Huntley and, DeAndre Jules also played really well. But having those 2 edges play the way they did, it's only going to help those interior guys because there's going to be so much attention on those outside guys that, those inside guys probably won't be getting double teamed. So I'm interested to see how these guys perform with another test here this week.
Yeah, I can't disagree. I think that if you are a Gamecock fan, you are very optimistic about the defensive line. And look, JC Sherbert says this all the time, and JC is one of my mentors in this space. In the SEC, offensive lines just are not better than the defensive lines that you face week in and week out. There are very few offensive lines in the SEC that are elite and that can shut down, what South Carolina potentially has in front of them. I thought Rocket Sanders looked pretty good. And when I say pretty good, I think really good. I thought that when he got the ball from, taking a handoff, whatever, like catching a pass, it, for better or for worse, it looked like a rocket shooting out of a cannon. Like he didn't lose any speed. He kind of just shot through the line. And when you look at what Georgia Tech did against Florida State and what Boston College did against Florida State, that's what South Carolina needs to do on the rushing side of the ball, because obviously those openings aren't that huge. And if they can do that, I'm excited. And Rocket looked fantastic.
Yeah, I agree 100%. He was having to, make some guys miss throughout that game, and I thought he was really good at doing that. Like, there'd be guys in the backfield that he was having to shake, and I thought one of the best things that he did was he always seemed like he fell forward and was getting positive. He would turn a no-yard gain into 3 or 2. He would turn a potential 3-yard game. He'd break a tackle and be more. So I thought that was one of the bigger things he did. He just always seemed like he was gaining positive yards for South Carolina and rarely got tackled in the backfield.
Yeah, and I think that we can move, and I agree with everything you said, Alex, but I think we move on to what went wrong for the Gamecocks on Saturday. I don't think the offense ever found any kind of identity, and whether that was vanilla by design or that was the offense not knowing what the hell they were doing, I'm not quite sure. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think it was pretty obvious they wanted to establish a run game early on, and they continue to do that with. You can look at the stats and see that with how many times Lenora Sellers and Rocket Sanders carried the ball. Like, they really wanted to establish a run game, and I think they had some success early on in the game. I just think it got, I think Old Dominion kind of adjusted to it, and it became a struggle a little bit later on to open some holes up. But these guys, I think for the most part, I thought one of the bigger. Shane Beamer mentioned this: the perimeter blocking, wasn't up to what it needs to be. And, the offensive line also had its issues. And I'm sure we're going to touch on all that here soon. But, I'm interested to get your take on all that.
Yeah, for me, just on that note, Alex, Rocket and Lenore's combining for 48 rush attempts. I know there were some sacks there for Lenore's. I know there were some knee downs, but, not that many of them. Yeah. For me, watching that game, it looked like a redshirt freshman who has been involved in a college game for, a year now, but a kid that just trusted his legs more than he trusted his wide receivers or tight ends. And I said that on Sunday Night Show, and I kind of want to back off of that a little bit because I just don't know what the play call was. I think that eventually the tight ends are going to be more involved at South Carolina. I think that Gamecocks they're going to have to throw the ball over the middle eventually. And Spencer Rattler was actually really good at that with those deep crossers. So
Mhm.
we know that's in the playbook. But at the same time, I don't think that's what Dowell Loggins, Shane Beamer, Sean Elliott, Lonnie Teasley, I can go through all the offensive coaches thought was going to happen. Mike Furry. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think he wanted his wide receivers to have, at best, 2 catches apiece for Mazio and Dre. So I think that's going to change.
Yeah, I think so too. And with Lenoris, I think, we kind of mentioned earlier, just kind of those first game nerves, I think maybe got the best of him a little bit. He just couldn't quite get into a rhythm. And when you go back and watch the game, you can see there are some potential open players or open wide receivers that he missed. I think one of the bigger things you just want to see from him in this game, just making him more comfortable, but then take what the defense is giving you. I think there was a couple plays where could have been a play where he threw it to Michael Smith or Rocket Sanders out in the flat and it gains 4 or 5 yards and it just keeps you ahead of the sticks. But, I thought for the first game he was okay. It's just, just those first games. And Shane Beamer mentioned that today. Like, there's a lot of expectations on him heading into that game and, just being in-state first game at South Carolina. But, I expect him to have, just get, now that that's out of the way, have a little bit of a better game Saturday.
Yeah, and Alex, I mean, no matter what Gamecock fans want to say or believe, it's tough when you're going against the defense on your own team in scrimmages and in practice every week from, the preseason, the summer, into game prep, because they know what you want to do. They know what the offense is trying to do. What the defense is trying to do. And then it's like, it's a chess game, right? At some point, like if I were to play you in basketball 10 times in a row, I'm going to know what you want to do, what you don't want to do. And I'm going to try and take that away from you. And for lack of a better way to say this, Lenore Sellers played against a team that is way better than any team he played against at South Florence. And when live bullets are flying, Old Dominion would win state championships in every state in this entire country at the high school level. I mean, they're college kids. I mean, they have experience. So I think that this was a learning lesson for Lenore Sellers when it comes to, okay, this is the actual speed against guys that you haven't practiced against a million times.
Yeah.
Like, this is what happens.
And I think we saw, we talk about, how he couldn't get into a rhythm, but I think throughout that game, we saw the flashes of what makes him potentially a really, really good quarterback. I thought that third quarter, that first drive is when he really kind of looked his best. He had a clean pocket for the most part and was stepping into his throws. And, the throw to Nick Harbor that ended up being incomplete wasn't a bad throw. But, I just thought he made some good throws and made some good decisions, both with his arm and with his legs. He had that one where it was another one of those plays kind of later in the drive where he could have gotten a 5 or 6 yard gain to Michael Smith, but he kept it, but made Jason Henderson an All-American linebacker miss. Like, it was a really good move he put on him and gained, I think it was a first down or 10 or so yards. So, even though he just was maybe a little bit uncomfortable in that game, I thought you still saw the flashes of what could make him really, really good.
Yeah, I think so too. And before we go to a sponsor break, I did want to break down each position group. And Alex, we're going to go, traditional grading scale, A through F. For quarterback, I've watched this game a couple times now. And originally, when I sent you these show notes, Alex, I said the quarterback got an F. And I'm going to change that. I think it was more of a C minus. I thought that Lenoris was okay, not good enough to beat Kentucky, not good enough to beat LSU, not good enough to beat Texas A&M, Oklahoma, the rest of the SEC. But what would you give Lenore Sellers on a A to F grade on Saturday?
That's about where I'd put him, is right at that C kind of level. I think for him, he had the one bad fumble that, credit to Nick Harbor on that play for chasing that guy down, and, a play later they got the interception. But, I thought he did what, at the end of the day, he did what he had. He didn't lose the game for him, I guess. He did what he had to do and didn't turn the ball over to an extent where it was a problem. So I think a C grade is good just because he did what he needed to do to help get the team a win.
Yeah, I can't disagree. Running back, I gave a B plus. Really, we only saw Rocket. I thought Rocket looked really good, but at the same time, it's kind of hard to grade. It's hard to give somebody an A when you don't get in the end zone, you don't break off a very, very long run. But for Rocket to get 88 yards on 24 carries and got another 10 yards catching the football, I think a B+ is pretty accurate.
Yeah, and I think it was hard not to come away impressed with what you saw from Rocket. Like the whole talk in the preseason camp that he was 100% and ready to go, and I think he showed that. Like he didn't seem like he was limited in any way, and had some explosive runs that didn't see a lot of those last year. And Mario Anderson had his fair share of them, but I think as the season progresses, hopefully for South Carolina, the offense continues to progress. You're going to see more explosive runs from Rocket, and I thought he showed that potential.
Yeah, for me, I thought Rocket was going to total over 130 yards in the game because I thought he was going to break off a 40 or 50-yard touchdown run or, surpass whatever. I still feel very confident that Rocket is a different level of running back than the Gamecocks have had over the last 2 or 3 years. And you're going to be hard pressed to change my mind on that. And not saying that you want to, Alex, but I think that this is a guy who's in first game, new situation, didn't scrimmage the first scrimmage, and now he's kind of getting his legs under him. He's probably not in football shape exactly right now because nobody is. That's not a knock on Rocket at all, but Rocket's the best running back the Gamecocks have had in quite a while.
And I think kind of add another point into this. I think he only ended up catching one pass maybe in that game on that screen pass.
Yeah,
I think
like
that's
a 10-yard
something
pass.
Yeah, and he looked pretty good on that, reading the blocks and all that. And I think that's probably something they need to do against Kentucky. For one, just to help Lenoris with those short passes, get him comfortable. But I think Rocket Sanders can be dynamite in that screen game just with his vision and his explosiveness.
I thought Oscar Attaway looked pretty good as well. Juju, when you get him in space, you know what can happen. Tight end, I gave this a C, but I also said kind of unknown.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know. Like, I don't think they did a great job blocking, but I also didn't see very many opportunities for them to catch passes. Obviously, you had that Lenoris pitch to Josh Simon that went for some good yards. And I'm not quite sure Lenoris wasn't past the line of scrimmage when he did that.
It was close.
But it all worked out. So, tight ends, what are you thinking there?
Yeah, I think it'd just be hard to give him a grade. There were some blocking issues there that they had to get cleaned up. But I think with Sean Elliott as that position coach, I think you have to imagine like that's going to get cleaned up after they've watched the tape. Like they'll figure that out. And we kind of know what Josh Simon can be, and I think they are going to they need to incorporate him a little bit more in the passing game. And I'm interested to see if they do that against Kentucky. But saw a little bit of Brady Hunt. And I think he had maybe that one target he had the fake field goal for one from Kai Kroger that he caught. And then I think there was another one that he dropped that, when you look at it, he probably wasn't going to be going too far on that play anyway. So, but I think it's kind of hard to give him a grade. We didn't get enough sample size.
Yeah, we didn't. And, with that pass attempt to Brady Hunt, I don't think he would have gotten a first down. But at the same time, like potentially it might have put Alex Herrera in like long field goal distance. And maybe they would have tried it. Maybe they would have gone on fourth down. I mean, it's tough because, the Gamecocks went for it on fourth down later in the game. Like, who knows what they would have done in that down and distance. I still go back to Brady Hunt, who caught that fake field goal. And, I think, was it fake punt or fake field goal? What was it, Alex?
Fake field goal.
Yeah. And, Kai Kroger has a pretty good track record of throwing touchdowns. But even that play to me, and we'll talk about this in a little bit in special teams, but he had to move around a little bit to get that ball off. And I don't think that the coaching staff thought that there was going to be a legal man downfield when he did it, but it took a little bit of time to get that ball off. Wide receiver, I gave it a C, and I said unknown. I thought that, Vandrigas Jacobs had a really good day. I thought that Mazio Bennett had opportunities for more if he got peppered a little bit. And, but also, I gave it a C because of Jared Brown. Even though you had an illegal receiver downfield again, that was a beautiful pass by Lenoris. And I would not be shocked when we go to the Kentucky game, we'll talk about it later, that they don't take a shot early because that was a beautiful ball that Jared Brown just dropped. And we heard about him dropping passes in preseason.
Yeah, I agree with what you said about their grade. You mentioned Drake Jacobs. I thought he was the best receiver South Carolina had, and showed. I think he was really close on that play on that pass from Norris to breaking that off for a touchdown. Just barely got tripped up, but I thought he looked the best out of the group. And I really liked that play they ran for Jared Brown, where they motioned that away out into the wide receiver and brought Jared Brown in and rushed Brown out to the perimeter. I thought that was a great play and kind of what you saw from what he did at Coastal. They kind of incorporated that there. So interested to see if they do more of that with him. But again, I just don't think we. And for one, Mazio Bennett, I thought had some really nice catches too, and had some nice runs after the catch. And Shane Beamer kind of called him out today to for his willingness to get down there and block. And he for all the perimeter blocking talk, he did want to shout out Mazio Bennett for being willing to go down into the box and help move some guys. So I think that was a nice start for Mazio Bennett. But I think we'll learn a little bit more about this group potentially here in Kentucky.
Yeah, I thought that, like we're about to move on to the offensive line here in a second, but I did think that some of the option plays were really good, and it's no different than what Boston College ran against Florida State last night. Had opportunities to pitch it, hold it, whatever. I thought Lenore did a really good job of making decisions on option plays. And, like, have you ever played football in your life? And look, I've never played it down, but when you see the defender's back, you just turn and go. Or if you see the defender running towards you, you pitch it outside and you see what happens. And they did a good job of that. And it was interesting, Alex. I don't know if I know you remember this because you watched this game a few times, but it was like one series when they just were like, okay, we're going to do option plays the entire time and see what happens. And I think that at the end of the day, sometimes they were just saying, let's just get some reps in because this is going to be a part of the playbook. And with Lenore's rocket and the speed you have with Jared Brown and other players on the offensive side of the ball, I think that could be effective. So let's not bury Dowell Loggins just quite yet. Offensive line, I gave a C+. Watching the game initially, I thought it might be like an F or a D, but I thought they played better than I gave them credit for on the rewatch. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think early in the game you saw, especially with some of the scripted plays, you saw them get some holes open. Like, I thought one of the better things they did do is when they were pulling, like they got across the line and they were blocking guys, especially early on. You think about that Lenora Sellers, I think it was like a 17-yard run. Like that was a well blocked play. The offensive line, they had their moments though in that game where guys were blitzing and not being blocked, or they were double teaming and somebody wouldn't come off a block and get that guy. And just some things that just didn't work. I think as the game went on, they maybe didn't get quite as much of a push in the run game as they were getting early on. And I think a lot of that was just Old Dominion adjusting, and with their defense kind of being as complex as it is, I just think that caused some problems. But those guys they'll have to be better against Kentucky because this is a talented defensive line that they're facing. And I just think I'm interested to see how they perform.
Well, it was a weird defense and it was a weird offense that the Gamecocks had to deal with. It's not easy to go play against a Tennessee style offense where it's, deep shots, deep shots, deep shots. Like once they had to like actually run the ball and play like a traditional offense, the Gamecocks just feasted. And I think that could be a big key to the Kentucky game. And then, when you think about the defensive side of the ball, like I guarantee you Lenore Sellers has never seen that type of defense in his entire life.
Yeah.
Like they might have repped something similar to that, but it's kind of different when guys actually know what they're doing. They're not just scout team. So when it comes to the defensive line, I give the Gamecocks an A. I don't know if you disagree with that, Alex.
No, I 100% agree. I know they were probably the best position group on the field of both offense and defense. I think they're probably the closest. I mean, they're probably the best. Like they just were constantly causing problems for that Old Dominion offense, either getting to the quarterback or stopping the run. And I think just throwing in the edges and interior together, I'd give them an A.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Kennard and Dylan Stewart being co-defensive ends of the week in the SEC, that tells you all you need to know. I thought that the defensive tackles played very well as well. It's just so deep on the defensive line. And we've been talking about that all offseason, and it really showed itself on Saturday at Williams-Brice. Linebacker, I give an A as well. I don't think the linebackers really missed that many assignments. You look at it, 2 broken plays, you take them under 100 yards or under 300 yards, close to 200 yards. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I thought the linebackers, all the talk in the preseason was about how much more athletic they are, and I think that was on display in the first play that they're on the field with Demetrius Knight, chasing down the running back on that swing pass. Like that
Yeah.
was pretty impressive. His speed that he showed on that play, and I thought Debo Williams had a really good game, but Demetrius Knight was one that just really stood out to me because he was constantly on the field and he had the coach the player headset, so he was talking to Clayton White. And, I thought that was, he was all over the field, and so was Debo Williams. And I thought, Bam Martin Scott also had a nice game. So I'd give them an A.
Yeah, so for secondary, I'd probably give them a B. I mean, it's hard not to give a team at least a B when they force 2 interceptions. And you talked about it earlier, O'Donnell Fortune had just the ultimate bait and switch in a big moment in the game. And then forcing interception on a tip pass to close the game out. I mean, the one thing that we can knock the defense for is DQ Smith. And we'll talk about this later, but I mean, looked like a missed assignment. Don't understand how that guy gets that open for 72, 73 yards, whatever it was. But I give them a B. I feel like that's correctable.
Yeah, I do too. I would go with that. With O'Donnell Fortune's pick, like that was you kind of mentioned, that was a huge moment in that game. Like they just had, all the momentum was starting to switch to Old Dominion. They'd gotten the fumble, gotten down to, I think it was inside the 5 or so that they had gotten down to, and they score a touchdown there. They take the lead. Who knows where that game goes? But O'Donnell Fortune made a really nice play, and I thought for the most part you did have the one bust where that led to a touchdown, but I thought the cornerbacks did a pretty nice job. Seemed like they were all over their receivers, and Old Dominion does have some pretty good receivers. Isaiah Page was the guy who made that long touchdown. So, I think they're going to have a big test this week. And I think that was a good start for those guys because they got Barry and Brown and Dane Key to worry about this week.
Yeah. You can't deny anything you just said. That is pretty true. Special teams, I gave special teams a B. I don't know about your take on that, but at the end of the day, you can't get a punt blocked. And that's a pretty big bugaboo. You missed a long field goal. I really don't care about that. I think the Gamecock coaches and the Gamecock players would much rather have the opportunities punching a touchdown instead of attempting a 48-yard field goal.
Yeah, I'd go B, somewhere in that C plus, C minus, C, B, whatever, somewhere in that range. A block punt, you can't have that. Like, most games that's going to hurt you. Like if you have a block punt against Kentucky, like it's going to be a problem. You had the fake field goal that looked like it was going to be a touchdown, but you had, not a pre-snap penalty, but a penalty that, that can really be avoided easily. So, I think, but for the most, there's a lot of solid that they did this. So I think I'd go with a B too.
Yeah, and I think on that note, we're gonna take a sponsor break. We're gonna keep rocking and rolling here. So Alex, there are a couple of things that I think about like after game 1, and the first thing that comes to mind is the most improvement usually comes from game 1 to game 2, and the most overreaction also usually comes from game 1 to game 2. I can promise you right now, like I predicted 41-10 for the Gamecocks. And if it was 41-10, everybody was saying, wow, Gamecocks have a chance to, beat Kentucky, beat LSU. Like, I don't know when they'll lose again. Maybe it's against Ole Miss. Probably not. They'll probably be 7-8-0, and then they'll have to have their first true road game, like against an A&M or an Oklahoma or whoever it is. I'm just spitting off names here. But, like, fans are short for fanatic. And I get it, and I understand it, and I'm all for it. But like the worst case scenario for the Gamecocks was week 1 this past week. So, Alex, I'm gonna talk about a couple of things, and it's gonna be what I know, what I think I know, and what I'm really not sure of. And Alex, I'd like to get your take on this too, and you chime in. But the first thing that I know is that Lenore Sellers is better than what he showed on Saturday. And the reason I know it is because I'm from Florence. I've watched the kid play in high school. I've seen some highlights of him on the practice fields. I've talked to enough people that tell me that Lenoris is pretty good. So, Alex, do you agree or disagree with Lenore Sellers is better than what he showed on Saturday.
I 100% agree. Like it goes back to all that we've talked about so far with him just being a first game. 80,000 people watching him this time. Like just the first game stuff, and I think we're going to see some improvements from him not only going into Kentucky but throughout the season as he gets more and more comfortable. You'll see him kind of get to where we think he can get.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I know a lot of Gamecock fans on message boards, Gamecock fans and other places are saying that, oh, wow, you just pump Lenore Sellers up. Like, he looks like a deer in the headlights. He doesn't look that great. I promise you that's not the real Lenore Sellers. And look, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I have enough people that I trust and enough people that have, frankly, coached him at levels other than South Carolina to tell me this is not the Lenore Sellers you should expect game in, game out. I will also say that it's really hard to be a starting quarterback at South Carolina against Old Dominion, against anybody else. I've said it again, or I said it earlier, and I will say it again, that Old Dominion is better than anybody Lenore's has ever faced where he didn't know what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. So the other thing that I would say that I know is that the defensive line is the real deal. This goes hand in hand with Lenore Sellers being the real deal. I've just talked to too many people that would know, and they all agree with the defensive line being really, really good. And I think they showed it on Saturday. Alex, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we'll learn even more about that group this week because it's a big step up in competition. Yeah, Old Dominion, the offensive line, it was well documented. They had their struggles last year, and I think some of that's carried over. But that doesn't take away from what that whole defensive line did. So I think they proved that they are ready or are the real deal, and they'll have a good chance to kind of build on that this week against a pretty it got some talent on the Kentucky offensive line.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Alex, what are two things that you know about this team?
All right. So I would have gone with the defensive line one, but you took that one from me. But I'll go to the next level and say that the linebackers are much more athletic this year than what they've had in previous seasons. I mean, you have, we talked about Demetrius Knight that guy. I thought, he was one guy who maybe wasn't getting talked about enough in preseason camp. And he went in, he started the game and showed it. Like, he was all over the field and had a really nice game and just showed off his athleticism. And, with Debo Williams, we knew what we were getting in that. And Bam Martin Scott showed, his impact that he can make in that 3-3-5 last year and how he can, destroy a game plan as well. So I think the linebackers showed that they are much more athletic.
Oh, dude, the linebackers, defensive line, like that front seven, sideline and sidelined up the middle, they're so much better. So I agree with that, Alex. What else you got?
All right, so the second one I had, we kind of talked about this one earlier. Rocket Sanders is really, really good, and it is right at 100. He's 100%. Like, if he's not 100%, he's right close to it. Like he showed that his vision was pretty impressive. His explosion was really good. So, I think Rocket Sanders shows he's the real deal and is going to play a huge part in South Carolina's offense.
Yeah, so Rocket Sanders to me he looked like a guy shot out of a cannon, looked like a guy that was just ready for the moment, and looked like a guy that's going to – I've already said I think that Rocket's going to have over 1,300 yards this season from, rushing and receiving. And there's nothing on week one that showed me he won't, because if he gets 24 carries every single game, he's definitely going to hit that mark. So what do I think I know? So Alex, what do we think we know? I think that the tight ends will be a much bigger part of the game plan going forward. I just don't see any way they're not when you have that much talent. And this is kind of like a cheap answer because they were not a part of the game plan at all at week one.
Yeah.
But there's no way they're not going to be more included.
No, and they're going to have to be in week 2 because you're going to need them against Kentucky. We know what Josh Simon is. We saw what he can do last year, and with Brady Hunt and all those guys, they have some depth in that room, and I think they need to use them. And they just, we've touched on it, like there's some blocking issues, not only from those guys, but all around on the offense. But I absolutely think they're going to be a bigger part of the game plan here moving forward.
Yeah, I can't disagree at all. I do also something else I think that I know is I think Alex Herrera is a good field goal kicker and a guy that the Gamecocks can trust um, throughout the season.
Yeah.
We kick multiple 40-yarders. I know he missed that 48-yarder, but he looked confident. He looked aware of the situation, and honestly, I just like him.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at his field goals too, it wasn't like they just got in. The ones that he made, like he just got
Yeah.
in. Like he kicked them strong. Like they could have. I mean, he could have been 50 plus making those, and they were right down the middle. So I think for the most, now the next step is him going into an away environment with 60,000 plus at Kentucky. Watch him kick field goals, and but I think he showed he's more than ready for that.
And to my kind of what I was thinking when I said the statement was like that is so important. Like this is a 3-phase game, and when the Gamecocks have been at their best, Ryan Suckup was drilling them.
Mm-hmm.
We with the Gamecocks need that. So Alex, what are some other things that you think but yeah, it's just a thought, maybe not, but you think.
All right, so this one we've touched on a bunch, but the perimeter blocking is better than what they showed. It's kind of, I mean, I think a lot of it was when you kind of watch. I think the Old Dominion scheme maybe just confused the perimeter blocking a little bit. There were times when you watch them and they would run to a spot where they think there's going to be a linebacker, and really in a normal, 3-4 defense or so, that they would be there. But I think for the most part, I kind of touched on earlier with those tight ends specifically having some issues blocking, like with Sean Elliott being, your tight end coach. Like they're not going to have, they're going to work on that, and they're more than likely going to get that fixed.
I can't disagree with that at all. Some other things that I'm looking at, and just to finish off this topic, what are things that you don't know, Alex? I'll let you go first on this.
All right, so this one, it could have been in the what I think I know as well, but this one is I'm gonna say I think what I know is that was not the whole playbook that we saw on Saturday. I think there's some stuff. I mean, obviously, I think that's pretty obvious too. Like, there's some stuff that was not shown in that Old Dominion game, and they're going to need to expand it a little bit. Like, be nice. I think you're probably going to see a little bit more of the screen game that just to help Lenoris. They got to find ways to get him comfortable early on in this game and not let Kentucky get all over him, the crowd and their defense. So I think we're going to, I think as far as what we see Saturday, I think you're going to see the playbook open up a little bit.
All right, so moving on to what you don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with that. Like that's the one I'm gonna stick with. Like I kind of had it in both segments. Like I think there's more to the playbook, and so yeah, I'm interested to see what you have on that.
Yeah, so what I don't know, oh gosh, it's tough. I don't know that the offensive line is better than last year. I think they are. I really, really, truly think they are, and I remember like how bad the offensive line looked against North Carolina last year, and there's no doubt the offensive line got somewhat better over the course of the year. The other thing that I don't know is, and Alex, this is going to be a spin curveball for you. If the Gamecocks don't perform better through the LSU game, I don't know that Dowell Loggins will be the offensive coordinator at South Carolina for the entire season.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it's obviously it's going to depend on these two next two games are huge. Like the offense has to show more than what it showed against Old Dominion. Like I mean, the talent on both defenses is going to take a step up, and I think LSU showed a little bit on defense too. Like Blake Baker's a really good defensive coordinator, so I think a lot is riding on in the offense in these next two games, and it's going to be interesting to see that go down.
Yeah, and to be perfectly honest, I really like Dowell Loggins. I think that Dowell Loggins is the right person for the job. I'll be on the record saying that right now, but at some point when you are in year 4, you have to kind of evaluate all options. And I'm not saying what Shane will or won't do, but at the same time, I don't know. Like this is crazy times because social media and the internet is crazy, and there is a lot of pressure that was not on head coaches Alex, 10-20 years ago. I mean, it's crazy to say 10 years ago, but at some point fans are going to start booing worse than they did on Saturday. And I just don't know where it's going to go, but I believe in Dowell Loggins 100%.
Yeah, I think there's obviously the pressure is kind of mounting on the offense to produce, and I mean they're going to need to. I think people just see it as the South Carolina defense has a chance to be really really good this year and showed a lot. And I think just South Carolina fans want to see that offense take a few steps forward to be able to maybe not match the defense, because I think that defense is really good, but just be able to I guess perform with those guys and help those guys.
Yeah, so we're going to take a quick sponsor break, and when we come back, Alex and I are going to do our best bet segment, and then we'll see how Alex did last week, how I did last week, and then we'll make our predictions for this week. We'll be right back.
Welcome home. That's what the Gamecocks say, and so does nationally recognized the Barndominium Company, where they are building dream homes in the Carolinas, Georgia, and Tennessee. Their turnkey process can be custom designed and takes 6 months on average. Make your dream a reality. Visit thebarndominiumco.com. Thebarndominiumco.com.
I said, oh, Lord Jesus, it's a fire. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Disaster comes uninformed. During and after natural disasters or accidents, there can be a heavy loss to property. It can become extremely difficult to bounce back to what you knew before. Having your home or office destroyed or damaged by water, fire, smoke, or mold affects your personal and business lifestyle. Resto Pros of the Midlands is here to help. Open 24/7. Call them when you need them. 803-493-0170. Resto Pros of the Midlands. RestoProsMidlandsSC.com.
What Right to Bear is we're an association of members across the entire country, and what we offer is we offer legal defense in the event of a self-defense case. Nice. So it's not insurance. So we offer an attorney in the event that one of our members might have some type of an accident. ProtectWithBear.com. We've got all of our social media accounts on the bottom of our website. We've got blogs, articles, detailed description of all of the coverages in depth, and we'd love to have you come check us out and ultimately get the protection you need.
Morning, Carl. Usual?
Yeah.
Your oldest was in here the other day. Said the two of you took a trip down to my neck of the woods. How'd that go?
You might as well give me one of those Carolina cars while you're at it.
I knew I liked that one.
Yeah.
There you go, my friend.
Thanks.
Hey, Carl. Congratulations.
See you tomorrow, ready?
You bet.
Well, welcome back into the Late Night Gamecock Show. We have now reached the best bets segment of this show, and best bet segment is always something that gets my blood boiling, because now we are on our reputation is on the line, Alex. We got to make sure that we make all of our viewers and listeners some money. I got to get my phone out to recap last week. So last week in the best bet segment, Clemson lost 34-3 against Georgia. Alex picked the under 48.5, and that cashed. And I picked Georgia minus 13.5. So both of us were profitable there for all of our listeners and followers and viewers. Penn State beat West Virginia 34-12. Alex and I both were on minus 7.5 for Penn State. So money. Good job, me and Alex. Miami beat Florida 41-17. Alex. You picked Florida minus 2.5. And I
Bad
picked
choice by me.
Hey, I love that you stick to your guns though. Like you made that prediction in the preseason and you said, look, I'm going with Florida, and I respect that.
Yeah, that was a tough one for me. Jeez.
Well, I mean, dude, I predicted under 54 and did not expect Miami scoring 41 points, so that was tough. So Alex and I both missed on that Miami Florida game. Notre Dame beat Texas A&M 23-13. Alex cashed in on his bet under 46.5. I took A&M -3. That was a bad bet.
Notre Dame
And
looks pretty
then,
good. Just
what's
off,
that?
just bouncing off that. So Notre Dame looks pretty good.
They do, and they actually
Yeah.
really need it because
Yeah.
it's funny, like, you know, Shane Beamer and Notre Dame's coach, I'm blanking on his name. What's his name, Alex?
Marcus Freeman.
Yeah, I mean, just 2 years ago, they were in the Gator Bowl against each other. So interesting storyline there. And then me and Alex could not leave you hanging on Monday night. Monday night, you had LSU scoring 20 points, losing to Southern Cal, who had 27 points. And Alex and I both took the under 64.5. So both those bets cashed. I hope you didn't follow me because I was 3-2. You would have lost all the juice. But if you had followed Alex, you would have been 4-1 and
Did all
making
right.
money and taking your wife or your girlfriend to a steak dinner this week.
Let's see what I can do this week. See if I can keep it up in week 2.
Yeah, Alex. I mean, you're 4-1. I mean, the entire population of these viewers and listeners are going to be following you now. Don't mess it up. But look, looking through the SEC this week, we're always going to give you SEC point spreads. And unfortunately, on ESPN, there's not a lot of them. However, Texas does travel to Ann Arbor, Michigan, and Texas is a 7.5 point favorite. The over-under is 42.5 at 12 o'clock. I should say that is a 12 o'clock game with Texas and Michigan on Fox if you want to watch it. At 12 p.m. on ABC, ESPN Plus, Arkansas travels to Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is a 7.5 point favorite, over under 62.5. Not seeing any lines on McNeese at Texas A&M. No line on Texas Tech at Georgia. California will travel to Jordan-Hare Stadium in Auburn, Alabama. Auburn is a 13-point favorite, 53.5 over under. The big game of the week for all Gamecock fans at 3:30 p.m. South Carolina travels to Lexington, Kentucky. Gamecocks are a 10-point underdog right now, and over under is 42.5. Middle Tennessee travels to Oxford, Mississippi. Ole Miss is a 41-point favorite, over under 63.5. 7 p.m. South Florida travels to Tuscaloosa. Alabama is a 31-point favorite, over under 63.5. And it keeps going because we have 16 teams in the SEC right now. But after that, Buffalo and Pete Limbo travels to Columbia, Missouri. Missouri is a 34.5 point favorite, 51.5 over under. Samford travels to Florida, right down the road, and there's no line there. Tennessee travels to NC State in Raleigh in the Dukes Mayo Classic. We all remember Shane Beamer getting dumped with Dukes Mayo. Tennessee is an 8-point favorite, 60.5 point over under. No line in Nichols at LSU. No line in Alcorn State Vanderbilt. Houston travels to Oklahoma and Norman, and the Oklahoma Sooners are favored by 30. Over under 49.5. And then Mississippi State travels to Tempe, Arizona to face off against Arizona State. Arizona State is -6.5, and the over-under is 59.5. So, Alex, before we give our best bets of the week, what are your thoughts on South Carolina versus Kentucky this weekend?
From a point spread or just overall?
Let's just go overall again. Just give predictions.
All right, so I'll start offensively with South Carolina. Obviously, going to have to be better just all around, really. Just up front, going to have to be better. Perimeter block has got to be better. Norris just needs to get comfortable in this game. Kentucky's got a lot of talent on that defense. They're really old defense. Deion Walker is going to be a first-round pick more than likely. He's a defensive tackle, and he was a problem all of last season, especially in that South Carolina game. So offensively, just got to find a way to get some rhythm early, and just don't let Kentucky get this out of hand early. But I don't think I'm interested to see, with this. I think defensively, I think they're going to play pretty well again. It's going to be Brock Vandegrift's first game, first SEC start. So you wonder how that's going to go. And Kentucky looked pretty good against Southern Miss. Obviously, it was a shortened game, 31-0, and that defense only gave up 5 rushing yards to Southern Miss. So. I think it's going to be a really big test for South Carolina in Lexington.
Yeah, for me, I think that Lenore Sellers is going to look a hell of a lot better than he did in week 1.
Mm-hmm.
I think Rocket Sanders is raring to go. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I would be surprised if this game, if either team reached 30 points, I'd be pretty surprised here. At the end of the day, it's 3:30 in Lexington. Thankfully, it's not a night game. I still have visions of Randall Cobb running through my head when the Gamecocks had that game won. And actually, short story here, Alex, I had to go to a haunted house with my now wife and all of her friends after that game happened. And there was nothing that could scare me because Randall Cobb had already terrorized my entire life at that point. But for me, I think that the Gamecocks didn't show everything they have. I think that, there's going to be so much gain in playing against Kentucky and SEC and, for lack of a better wording, you got to nut up or shut up. Cam, who was the guy that said drop your nuts? So, yeah, you got to do
Cam
that.
Smith.
Yeah, Cam Smith said drop your nuts. This is drop your nuts times for the Gamecocks, and we'll see what they do. If I had to pick this game, and I will pick the game because I have to, I'm going to say 23-17 Gamecocks. I think they win this one. I'm sticking with my preseason prediction, so that's 40 points. The over-under is 42.5, and Kentucky is favored by 10. Alex Jones, what says you?
Way to put me on the spot, Matt.
I gave you it earlier. You didn't take it.
I think just with the concerns on offense, I think that's obviously some valid concern heading into this game with Kentucky having, so much talent or just being a really talented defense. With Mark Stoops, he's always going to have talented defense. I think it's going to be low scoring. I think it's going to, I'm thinking somewhere in that low 20 range. I'm going to go South Carolina 21. No, excuse me, South Carolina 24, Kentucky 21.
Okay. So, don't you love this show? We always pick the Gamecocks to win. This is the show you should watch if you want good feelings. But no, I do think it's gonna be a low scoring game, Alex. I'm not being, just a Gamecock fan here. I do think that Gamecocks have more to prove in week 2 than Kentucky does. And I saw Kentucky, I saw their game. I watched some replay. There were a lot of tip passes. There were a lot of opportunities for interceptions. There's no way the Gamecocks are going to get 4 turnovers every single game. But at the same time, I think that South Carolina's front 7 is going to be a problem for Kentucky in the same way that Kentucky's front 4 could be a problem for South Carolina. But I do think that Gamecocks will find a way to win. I don't know how, I don't know why, but I do feel that.
With this too, the beginning of the game is key in this one. If South Carolina can get into a rhythm offensively early and just stick around for a while, who knows what can happen if you just, with the way I think the defense has a chance to play. I think the defense is going to give the offense every opportunity to do what it needs to do in this game. And, I think it's just it's probably just going to be up to the offense to be able to do that. But if if you have some turnovers early or just, 3 and out constantly early, you could let this one get out of hand if you let Kentucky get a lot of momentum early. So I'm going low scoring. I'm going to say South Carolina finds a way to pull it out, but I'm gonna say the confidence level on that is not high, but we'll see.
Well, look, I'm looking at the comments, and Jay Diz says first team to 20 points wins. Like, I kind of agree with that. I mean, I think I very much agree with that, Jay Diz. First team to 20, I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. And
I do too.
Look, I've been wrong, like, a lot in my life. Like, I'm not perfect. But in this particular game, I just don't think either offensive team is great. And I think the defenses are better.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, I'd say the South Carolina's defense is better than Kentucky's, like, overall.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, it's in Lexington, Kentucky at 3:30. I think it's really beneficial for the Gamecocks that this game is not going to linger into twilight and nighttime when fourth quarter gets legitly loud. In the same way the Gamecocks have LSU coming at noon. I think that's a benefit for the Gamecocks. I think that this game time is a benefit. And I might be wrong, but go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, turnover battle is going to be huge in this one. It seems like in every game it is, but especially this Kentucky-South Carolina battle, it feels like turnover battle is always huge. And again, like if you let it get out of hand early where you have some bad turnovers or stuff like that, Kentucky can get some momentum and run with this one. But, I just got a feeling it's going to be a very low-scoring game based on what we both said here. Is pretty, two defense that we think, so far are pretty solid. So, I think it's just who can make the most plays offensively.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all there. And so with that, we got to get out of here. We're going to do our best bets. And actually, Alex, so Alex and I talked about this a little bit earlier. Got to get my handy dandy bet book out. So I have some bets, Alex, and I want to get your take on it. So I'm taking the Texas and Michigan game. I'm taking Texas minus 7.5. Where are you at with that game?
Yes, I am too. I was a little skeptical of what I saw from Michigan this past week. So I think Texas got a chance to be pretty good. So I would do the same.
All right, Alex. So do you have your 5 picks for this?
I do.
Okay, so time out. Were you feeding off me there, or do you actually want that one? Because I want to make sure that I give you your picks.
No, because you picked the same. You picked the same way I was going to pick, so I'll go to a different one.
No, if you want to take it, if it's the best bet, if you want people to make money.
Well, okay, yeah, we'll go with it.
All right. So what's your next one, Alex? And I'll go to my next one.
Okay, I have Georgia Tech is favored by 3 over Syracuse, and I think they cover. They win and cover.
Okay, so GT minus 3. Okay, I like that. I think Georgia Tech's a really good team, and I'm not sure Syracuse actually is ready to play football yet.
Yeah, we'll see with Georgia Tech now. I think they looked really good against Florida State and controlled that game, but I think now with Florida State, people are wondering who's that talk about more. But I like Brent Key. I think he's going to do a good job there, and I think they'll cover in this one.
All right, so I got Texas minus 7.5. Alex has Georgia Tech minus 3. My next one is Tennessee at NC State, and I'm taking the under 60.5.
Okay, well, I have the same game, but I'm going Tennessee covers the 8.5.
Okay, Tennessee minus 8.5, and I got the under 60.5. All right, the next one, Alex, I don't know if you have this one, but I have App State at Clemson. App State plus 17.5.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, obviously there's questions with Clemson's offense. I just feel like, I'm not going to use this one, but I think they're going to cover that.
All right, so what's your next one, bud?
All right, Oklahoma State 7.5 versus Arkansas. I'm not doing any over-unders on this. I'm taking all point spread ones on these, but I got Oklahoma State covering the 7.5.
Okay. I have that game as well. I'm doing an over-under on this one.
Okay.
And I have the under 62.5.
Oh, yeah.
So,
62.5 is the over-under?
I mean, I saw that at 2:00 today. I don't know what it is right now.
No, that's a lot. I would do the same. Oh, Phil. Okay.
Yeah, Phil's coming in. Phil, are you taking the over Oklahoma State game? Is that what you're taking, Phil? Pop in if you want to bet. Yeah. So Phil's taking the over in the Arkansas-Oklahoma State game, over 62.5. Going to be a lot of points scored there.
Yeah, there's a lot of points.
All right. So the next one that I have is, I think it's my last one. It's Middle Tennessee State at Ole Miss. I'm taking Ole Miss minus 41 because I just don't think Lane Kiffin gives a rat's butt about anybody, and he is playing for the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, what was that final score this weekend with Furman? 76.
Oh gosh, it was. One second, I got it somewhere.
I think it was.
I think it was like 72-0.
72-0. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that's a good one. I can see them still. I mean, that offense is something. I don't think he has any plans of slowing them down in any game.
No. All right, so Alex, what's your last one?
All right, I have on this last one. I have Marshall. Well, excuse me, Virginia Tech is favored. Virginia Tech is favored 20.5, but Virginia Tech's going to win, but they're not going to win by 20.5.
Let's go. Let's go, Alex Jones. Big picks, big picks, big picks. I love that one. That is one that I'm gonna throw some money on that. I like your confidence, Alex.
Yeah, Marshall. I think they had it up here. They beat. I mean, they played Stony Brook in week 1, so not much learned from that one. But I mean, Virginia Tech didn't look all that great against Vanderbilt. You know, they could easily, I guess, in this one, since it's back home, their first home opener, maybe they put it on Marshall. But you know, Marshall's got a pretty solid program, so I don't know. I think they're going to be ready for that test. And I think Virginia Tech wins, but it's not by 20.
I love it. I love it. Well, everybody stay tuned to thebigspur.com. Alex Jones, myself, I'm sure there's going to be so many guests on Inside the Gamecocks coming up. So if you're looking for something to do from 11 to 2 p.m., and let's be honest, nobody wants to work from 11 to 2 p.m. every single day. Just lock in and listen to Inside the Gamecocks. Tomorrow, Tailgate Talks has an entire panel of the best Gamecock quarterbacks of all time that are going to be on the podcast, on the show. You can watch it on the Chief Sports Network, on Gamecocks Plus. Just make sure you're checking that stuff out, because these conversations with Pat DeMarco and Steven Garcia are phenomenal. Alex and I thank you for giving us the most valuable thing you have, which is your time. It's so nice to spend this time with all of you, and we'll see what happens this week with the Gamecocks traveling to Lexington, Kentucky, 3:30 kickoff. Kentucky's favored by 9 or 10, wherever you look at it, but we both feel like the Gamecocks have a fighting chance. So we thank all of you for listening. Alex, anything that you want to get out before we log off tonight?
No, I mean, I appreciate everybody being on. It's been fun so far. It's still early season, but it's been fun every Tuesday night getting on here for an hour to talk about all things college football. It's been a lot of fun. I appreciate everybody being here.
Absolutely. And with that being said, we are out of here for tonight. Thank you so much for listening, so much for viewing, and we will see you soon. Actually, we will see you very soon, Sunday night, regardless of what happens on Saturday. You will hear me and Alex and Joe, and we will break down the Saturday that was. So again, thank you guys for listening. We hope you have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk to you Sunday and then again on Tuesday. Have a good one, y'all. Bye.